Ublumi, Quyanaq Qaikaffi Pangma Nunaptingnun, Uvagut Margaret Elias. Welcome to where we live now. My name is Margaret Elias, and today, on today's episode, we have a special guest. We have John Norberg.
Mm-hmm.
How are you?
Not bad. Very well, actually.
Yeah. So John is my Uncle John, and I'm really excited to have him on. And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself the same way you would as if you were talking to an elder. So just let us know who you are, who your family is, where you're from and where they're from. If you could just go ahead and let us know.
Well, I'm, as you know, my name is John Norberg. Most of my life I was John Norberg Jr., but I dropped that when my father passed, and his name was Johnny. My mother was Lena, and we're a pretty diversified family, being my mother was from the Kugluktuk copper mine area of mixed parentage, and my dad was from Old Crow in the Yukon, also of mixed parentage. And so we got to have all the races in us right now.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was born in a place I hadn't even seen, a place called Reid Island. It's a little outpost camp south of Uvaguk, and I was born there, and all I can remember is I was told we left there. My mother wanted us to go to a town where there was a school, because there was a bunch of boys in the family and we were coming of school age. So they chose Tuktoyaktuk.
Yeah.
And all I remember is a long boat ride in the summer, seasick. And anyway, that's where we ended up, in Tuktoyaktuk, and that is where we grew up in. Nice little place.
Yeah.
Back then. 400 people.
Oh.
Yeah.
A lot smaller than what it is now.
Oh, yeah. A lot smaller. Wow.
So you were living in Reid Island, and you guys and chose to go to Tuk. How, you don't remember how old you were?
4.
4?
Yeah.
So your earliest memories,
Yeah.
probably.
Because they said we moved there in 57. So if I was born 53, I'd be 4 years old. Yeah.
That's insane that you remember that.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated when I hear stories like that because I just grew up in Tuk, right? Like, yeah, listening to people traveling by boat.
Yeah, boat was a big way of life back then. There in Tuk, there was at the point. That's where we lived at the point.
Yeah.
At the start when we first got there, lived in a tent at the point. Anyway, there was lots of boats all the time, every summer. Tuk was the people in them days. They used their boats, right? They went out to their outpost camps and trapped all winter and hunted all winter and come back in the summertime to sell their furs, and they'd even go as far as a Quyanaq to go sell their furs with their boats and whatnot.
Do you remember living those days?
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember everything. I remember seeing all the boats and as a kid, the most exciting time was when NTCL would come with a barge, and they'd have live animals on the barge, and that's how they brought them up, and they'd kill them in Tuk and butcher them there, and like some cows and some pigs and chickens and whatever. But that was the big event of the year. When that barge came, all of Tuk would be down at the point.
Looking at a cow.
Yeah, well, and what they do is, them cows, them animals have been cooped up for weeks on that barge, right?
Yeah.
And they let them all free.
Oh.
And the people were running, the animals were running, and everybody was having a great old time.
So
if you can consider being chased by a chicken a good time, but it was, nobody's seen that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I've heard stories like that before, but I didn't know that they had let them run loose.
oh yeah, they let them run loose, and then they start butchering them there.
Yeah.
Yes, that was not too many people ever mention that. I don't know if they all forgot it or if I'm the only one that remembers. So.
Well, I did hear a story of a cow in my listening, doing this job.
So I'm not, I did see them then. Okay. I didn't make it up.
So your family, I'm assuming, were trappers.
Yes, yes. My dad was a trapper, a hunter, a sailor, and he'd be sailing all summer and out. And the way every day when I'd get up in the morning, I'd run to the front door, and I'd look toward where the Hudson Bay store was, because I'm looking for the mast sticking up from his ship. When I see it, I know he's home.
Yeah.
Greatest time, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So these stories, when we talked a little bit, you said that your brothers were taught, they were doing trapping with your father, and then you started residential school.
Yes. When my dad used to go, he started with the oldest boy, Gordon, and Gordon would go with them trapping, and then Gordon had to go off to school. So then the next one up was Peter. Peter was a couple years older than me, and it was the same situation. When they're done and it was time for them to go, my turn coming up. Boy, I was getting excited. Not too much excitement when I got shipped off to Grolier Hall here for grade 6 long. So I missed out on that. But I did get to go hunting with him, with my father and whatnot. And that was the best time of year too, springtime, when you get out of school for a few weeks and whatnot. Yeah. And another thing about growing up with a dad that lived off the land, we got to eat whatever he killed and what he brought home. We had no choice. We eat it. And we've had a taste of all kinds of food.
Okay.
You know.
What was your favorite?
The favorite is still geese, still goose soup and whatnot. Oh, I just love that.
You and Auntie both, I think.
Well, Aunt Donna likes hers roasted.
Oh, okay. And so the only thing I remember hearing about growing up in, because I grew up with you, like you're my uncle. I spent a lot of time, and you guys. The only thing that I really knew is that you guys had a lot of dogs. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about maybe?
Well, the dogs were part of the family as far as I can remember, because that was the means of Dad going trapping, right? And doing his hunting and his trapping was all dogs. And he'd take quite a few dogs, 16 dogs by himself going trapping, and then leave a whole bunch at home that we had to look after. And Gordon and Peter were still there, but they had little dogs too. They had to learn. They had to go get ice, go get wood, and do all the chores a young boy has to when their dad's gone out making a living, right? You know. And the dogs were just there when Peter continued on with the dogs. When he continued racing, he had a whole pile of dogs too. You know.
Yeah.
So there were lots of work. We had to help them out, and my mother was a champion at looking at the fish nets and dragging a whole bunch of young kids.
Really?
Yes. Dad would be gone. Gordon and Peter would be working by then. And there was me, my younger brother Gary, and there was 4 girls total younger than us. I don't know how many were born, but honest to God, I believe we used to look after 9 nets at one time and put the fish in the ice house.
Every day?
9
nets every day? Or like?
Yeah, except when it was stormy.
Yeah.
I just got to wipe myself.
Yeah, that's okay.
And when it was stormy. But Mom was good. She worked hard, taking care of all the little kids and the big boat we had, and we had the slowest boat in Tuk growing up. My dad ended up with a big lifeboat off a schooner. It was a big, slow boat, but probably one of the safest boats, you know.
Yeah.
And a little 9.9 on it, and we used to envy everybody that passing us. You know. I still remember that slow boat.
Yeah. What was its name? Did it have a name?
Yes, the Sally Ann, named after 2 of the sisters.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, they're still alive. Sally's in Hay River, and Ann is still in Hay River.
That's cool.
The Sally Ann.
Was it big enough to fit all your dogs on it?
It was big enough. It was a big, big boat. Was
it a schooner?
It was the lifeboat from a schooner.
Okay.
So, it was just a big wooden boat. You'd see probably them in some movies and that when they let a lifeboat down that size. Anyway, that, yeah.
Just watching people pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was growing up in Tuk. That was how it was back then. And wood stoves, and well, everybody knows that. Everybody lived the same there. Yeah.
Yeah. So how many, your mom used to, did you have aunts and uncles to help? Like,
No, in Tuk we were the only one with that name.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
Norberg is it's a
It's
famous
not-
name, but there's
But
not a lot of
it's not a very lot of them.
Yeah.
And even in Kugluktuk, where there was Norbergs there wasn't that many. My dad had lots of children, but they. So I'm not sure how many years ago the remaining, some of the older boys left. They got together and they asked the families there if whoever wanted to change their name.
Oh.
So there was a bunch of people changed their name to Norberg to keep the name
from
going.
Yeah.
You know, to
From
keep
disappearing. Yeah.
So there's lots of them there now.
In Kugluktuk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's lots over there now.
Have you ever been there?
A couple of times, yeah.
Yeah?
3-4 times, yeah.
Yeah. I always think it's so far to travel there.
Well, it is, you know, you gotta go to Yellowknife and
Yeah.
fly there. Beautiful little place.
It is. Yeah.
Beautiful there.
So, what did, like, when you were going to residential school, after residential school, what was your life like after that?
Well, residential school, when I was doing my last couple of years, I was doing them here. And then the boom there was an oil boom just starting, okay? And there was work all over the place, and I couldn't wait to get out of school and get to work and whatnot, and that's what I did. There was oil companies doing all the work. Everybody worked for the oil companies. Everybody had money, and there was a few booms I went through, but the first one was there. Yeah.
And you were here?
I was, when the boom really started, I was in Tuk, still living there, but just summertime, right? In the winter. One summer I had a job in the Hamlet office in Tuk. I just finished grade 10, and I learned how to do typing in Fort Smith in that year. So somehow I landed a job in the Hamlet office, typing and doing all the stuff you have to do.
Yeah.
You know, I had to be taught all that, but anyway, I was taught, and I was doing that type of work, and I wasn't making much money. I think I started off at $1.80 an hour, and they give me a raise to $2.10 an hour. But anyway, during the course of a day, one day, some workers came in from Esso. They were across the harbor then. They were just starting up that summer. And they wanted me to go find workers for them. They wanted laborers, and they wanted labor foremen. And I was making $2.10 an hour, and they said, we're going to pay the laborers $2.75 an hour. I stopped and I looked at them. And then they said, we're going to pay the foreman $3.25 an hour.
Whoa.
Which was just unheard of.
Yeah.
And I almost quit then and applied for a job.
I thought you were going to say you did quit
I
then.
almost, I hung on. I went and But that was the start of the boom. That's how I remember. Boy, these guys at Esso, they're paying big money.
What year?
Holy.
What year was that?
Okay, that would have been 69, 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did grade 11 and 12 here. And you know why I took typing?
Why?
I got to tell you this.
Okay, I gotta know.
Back in the 60s, typing was part of the curriculum in school, and mostly girls took it. That was the girls' thing to do. And typing class came along, and none of the boys in the typing class said they were going to take typing. Nobody said they were going to take typing. But anyway, the first class, when I looked in that class, from all the boys from my homeroom, about 80% of them were in that taking typing too with me. Do you know why?
Why?
The teacher, honest to God, was identical to Dolly Parton.
Oh my goodness, Uncle.
So all the boys were there too.
Everyone was going to go and see Dolly every single day.
That's
funny.
you know.
Just typing.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
So you took a typing class and
Yeah,
then
I
ended
took
up
typing
with it.
and I ended up, you know, getting a summer's job out of it.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Uncle. Isn't that insane that, like, pay, I guess, what was minimum wage even a thing back then?
Yeah.
Because minimum wage when I started in 2003 was $7. And I think it's like 15 something now. Like, hasn't gone up very much since the 70s.
And then even the best jobs in Tuk were the only jobs you could get before that was with NTCL. There was nothing before that.
Yeah.
You know? And I still remember working for NTCL. You'd work your butt off for 2 weeks and you'd get a $90 check.
That's insane. That's insane.
A little bit of overtime, you'd get a $120 check. So
yeah.
That.
So you're
but nobody
used to...
nobody complained.
I was just gonna say you're used to hard work.
Yeah, that was how it was.
You must have been like the jack of all trades.
Well.
Kind of.
I mean, for equipment anyway.
Yeah.
Because NTCL was a training ground. There was so many different types of equipment to use and whatnot. And if you're ambitious, there was another fella, he's passed now, but we'd eat our lunch really quick and then run down to the yard because we got an hour and then practice moving wooden pallets with forklifts just to get the experience. And then when you made a nice, neat pile a few times, my dad was the foreman, he'd give you a chance to move freight.
How cool.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And that just about all the young men in Tuk went through that NTCL. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that.
That was a good company. Everybody that was the people that work for NTCL now are still really proud to work for NT.
Yeah.
You know? It's always been like that.
Yeah. So how did you go from that to because you said you did camera work in your life too, like.
Well, that was just during when I was in the hostel here.
Oh, okay.
They were looking for people to run the CAN TV and do a little camera work, and so we did it. I did it anyway.
Sounds like you just like to keep busy. Yeah.
And there was a time I even applied to go to Ryerson for that in Toronto for radio and TV arts. But like I said, the boom was going and the money was so good and the Mad Trapper was so good too. So that's where I stayed in this part of the world. Yeah.
That must have been all before I was born.
Yes, oh yeah.
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 So how long did you stay in Tuk for, or did you just come back here?
Tuk, well, the last, just before 2000, we moved out of Tuk and moved here. So we've been here quite a while now.
Because
And I've done a little bit of work and a little bit in Alberta here and there, you know, and did a little traveling. And
I'm just trying to gauge time, because my earliest memories of you being my uncle, I must have been like 9, maybe 10. So, like, I'm trying to gauge, like, what was happening between 80 and 90s. So, like, where were you then? Because
most of that was in Tuk in
Yeah.
the 80s and 90s. Yeah, most of that was
you
in
must have
Tuk
been
with a few trips. There's a few times I was gone for a while. There was a time I was gone for a few years, and I went home, and I happened to have long hair then, ponytailed, and a big beard. And,
I want to see pictures of this.
and I had a big beard, and I went home, and I didn't knock at the door. I just walked in. And then I seen my dad. I said, "Hi, Dad." And my dad looked at me, and he said, "What do you want?" He looked at, he said, "What do you want?" I said, "Hi, Dad. It's me, your son." Says, "Who are you?" And then my stepmother, Bessie, said, "Johnny, that's your son."
Yeah.
You know, like they didn't recognize me.
Yeah.
You know, I was gone for a number of years, right? Went back with long hair.
Where were you when you were gone?
Most of it was in Alberta.
Yeah?
Alberta,
Yeah. You were working down there for oil companies there too?
Oil companies, and and maybe, yeah.
Who has pictures of this? Do
There'd
they
be-
exist?
Any pictures are long disappeared.
Apparently in the 80s and 90s it wasn't as common. Yeah. Oh man, I want to see you with a beard and a ponytail. So,
Yeah, I'd like to see a beard and long hair again, but I think them days are.
them days are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the dumpster. I
Yeah.
worked
did
on
work-
building the dumpster.
You did?
Yes, and that was back in the 70s.
Oh
Did
wow.
a couple of sections. McPherson we were in, and the other part, the Yukon side too.
Yeah, you were working.
Yeah.
Were
we built-
you like working the dump trucks?
Oh yeah,
or
dump trucks, whatever
they
they
needed?
needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't running any graders or anything like that. Yeah, the grader was the last thing I learned to run.
Yeah.
You know? Like I run most of the equipment, but the grader was the last one. I don't know why, but eventually I used to see all the grader guys in Tuk working every day, and when we were driving trucks, soon as the trucking was finished, we're sitting around waiting for the next job. Except the grader guys, they kept going. So I finally asked Bob Safier to, "Can I go out there too, Bob?"
Yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
sure, John.
You know my dad, because my dad works in that, he says be the grader. He always says like it might be slow, but he was like, you got to get the job done. You're always doing it, and he always advises be the grader.
Yeah,
Like,
well, yeah, you just.
yeah.
I used to tell everybody once in a grader, once you learned it and whatnot, you just let the grader do its own thing. It does that. Just
Yeah.
once in a while, you have to adjust a lever here or turn the wheel here. But
Yeah.
you just let it go.
So
And,
can
and another thing about the grader. When I was a kid and it was Tonka Toys time, that was my that was my toy, the grader. Started off young, running the grader.
No, can you tell me why then? If you were there when you saw the Dempster Highway being built, why was it say, like, I survived the Dempster? Was it really that dangerous back then? Like, I don't know where that phrase came from.
When it was first built, I mean, it wasn't the best shape. It was hard on the tires and whatnot, and I don't know if my buddy will get mad at me if he hears me talking about him now. But my buddy Buck Dick, his first trip going to Whitehorse, he took 6 spare tires with him because he was told that's how rough that Dempster was.
Oh my goodness! So it really was.
Yeah, it was hard on the tires.
The thing I try to associate, like how I try to understand it. Do you remember when the ITH was first built? That first year was just mud, and you would like just slide down the hill within the grooves, and I took that road. Everybody took that road to go to Jamboree that first year. And all I could think of was, this must have been why I survived the Dempster Highway became a slogan, because the Dempster must have been just like that.
And the Dempster was dangerous in the winter too, for the storms coming up and getting you trapped.
That makes so much sense.
There and whatnot.
See, I have to learn.
Yeah.
This is how you learn from stories from long ago.
Because I've heard lots of horror stories from truck drivers trapped in their trucks for days and whatnot. And even one time in Tuk, we had to go out in a blizzard and do a rescue for some people on the ice road. And what happened was, on a Friday, a big storm came up, and everybody, usually people traveling, if somebody didn't make it, they try to find out if he's back in Inuvik, or, they try to find out where he is, or if they're stuck on the road. And this time, there was these people stuck on the road.
Oh my!
The secretary manager from the hamlet of Tuk, and the teacher and his wife. I don't know, they might have been your teacher. I can't remember their name. Anyway, this is Friday night, okay? So we know they're out there. They're not reported in Inuvik. They're not nowhere. So the blizzard's going on, and finally, Sunday night, Bob Staffier calls us, and Eric Lewitt, myself, and Mervyn Grubin. He said, John, look, you guys, I don't want to ask you to do it, but we pretty well have to go look for these people. We can't just not do nothing. So we have to try. So Eric Lewitt took one grader, I took one grader, and Mervyn followed us in his crew cab. And we had to go out. We had to go find them, and we did. We found them in about 30 miles up the river, and they were wondering what we were doing there. We said, we're here to. They were okay.
Yeah.
They still could start their truck. They still had gas, so they were warm. But
well, back then you didn't know how long storms were going to last, right? Like they could be 4 days.
Yeah, and you know, and sitting in a pickup is not the place you want to be, right? You know, because there's not much help's gonna come. You know.
You must have saw a lot of storms in your life.
Quite a few, yes.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
Just in Tuk or outside of Tuk?
In the Tuk area and north of there, we used to go to McKinley Bay. That's north, and we'd go the other way towards Herschel Island and whatnot. My buddy Rocky Hansen was behind me in the grader, and and I lost him for a while. And when I called him on the radio, I asked him where he is. He said he's traveling. I says, how in the world are you seeing Rocky? He said he's standing at the door. The door is open. He's standing in the door and looking down at the ice.
Yeah.
So that's how we made it home 40 miles that day.
That's insane.
Standing in the door, looking down.
Mm-hmm.
When you come up to the big snowbank on the left, you're eye level with it, so you know where you are then.
Yeah.
And you got to turn right a little bit to straighten out again.
Goodness.
That's how we made it home. That was,
What year was that?
those were in the 80s.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. When I first started running grader out in the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you worked on the ice road 2 lots then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you there when they closed the ice road down?
I'm not sure where in the world. I was there right to the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2000.
Boy, I miss that too.
Yeah, I miss the ice. You ever
Yeah.
watch that show End of an Ice Age?
Mm-hmm.
Where they did the documentary on the opening ITH?
No.
No? I drove, okay, so I'm 35. When did it open? 2015? 16? Yeah. Around there? I drove it one time in my life. All those rides I'd come to see grandma, 12 years old to like 20 something. One time in my life I ever drove that. Drove that road, and I had a big lump in my throat the whole time, knowing that was going to be the last year of the road. Yeah. So you always, you sound like just because I know you always working, like my whole life, I saw you working, and clearly long before my life, you're busy. Is there anything that stands out, like any memories that comes up, like stories that you like to share? Any? Like
working stories or?
Well, any type of stories, like when you talk and you sit and tell stories with people, because you know, like when we're like sitting around and having tea or coffee and we're sharing stories and stuff. Are there anything that comes up that you like to? Usually, like everyone has a favorite story they like to tell.
Geez, it'd be so hard to pick one out and start talking. You know, there's so many things I've done and whatnot. And one time, I'm in Edmonton. I'm running low on money, which is what Edmonton does to you. So, anyway, back in, this is the 1970s.
Yeah.
Back in them days, the boys that used to go to Edmonton on a Sunday, they'd say a lot of times the boys would go to the museum and hang around, because Sunday there was nothing open, and you might run into somebody from the north, you know, one of your friends. And I was with my buddy Sam Jacobson. He's passed now. Anyway, I was with him, and I told Sam, let's go to the museum. And he asked why, and I said, well, we might run into somebody, and maybe we could hit him up for a few bucks or whatever. And sure enough, I got there, and I don't know if he'll be listening. Albert Rufus was there.
Oh.
Albert Rufus was... he was a rich guy, because he always worked on the rigs and had, you know, he was working on the rigs, and he was there. Of course, he was sweating bullets, and he was there. And I said, Sam, just stay here. I said, I'm going to go talk to Albert, see if I can bum $20 off him. So I went to Albert and give him my hard luck story, being broke and that. Albert said, you know, I asked for $20, which was lots of money back then. This is 75 or whatever. That was half a day's wages, almost $20. Anyway, he pulled out his wallet. And all he had was $50 bills and $100 bills.
Cow.
So he Gee, John, I got no 20s. So he gave me a 50. Boy, I couldn't thank him enough. So I said, gee, Al, you know, thanked him and all that. And I said, okay, I'm going to go back. See you, Ali. I went to Sam. Sam. He said, what, John? Go ask Ali to borrow $20.
Did he give him?
Oh, yeah.
My gosh, you guys got $100.
That is major.
And what you did with the money?
Actually, we just used it to survive.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Never went to River Cree.
There was no River Cree. There was no casinos back then.
Okay.
Back then.
Mm-hmm.
That was the days of. I can still remember hamburgers in McDonald's were 25 cents.
Oh my goodness.
And a cheeseburger was 35 cents.
$50 must have lasted
and
so long.
Gasoline, believe it or not, was 25 cents a gallon. Because I know that because me and a buddy, we bought a car in Edmonton, flew down from here, bought a car in Edmonton. We wanted to go to Mexico, which we did, paying 25 cents a gallon in 1975.
What? And that was like in the 70s. Wasn't the gas really expensive back then too?
No, it was.
I thought that the gas in the United States maybe.
It was 25 cents a gallon.
Oh my goodness.
And that's what it was here in Inuvik too.
Yeah, the same.
It was the same price as Edmonton and all that.
That's insane.
Not too many people, when I mentioned the 25 cents a gallon, there's not too many people who remember that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It makes me feel so old.
Well, everything's gone up. Yeah. Everything's changed.
Well, look at what you pay for gas now. Right?
I know, right? You need to work 3 jobs to afford it now. So you guys went all the way to Mexico. What was that like? Was that your first time traveling to a tropical place? Yeah,
we were gone for 2 months, and like we did across Canada, Toronto, New York City, down to Texas, down the one side of Mexico, across Mexico, and up the west side, LA and whatnot.
You traveled like everywhere.
That was an eye-opening trip. It was
in the 70s.
Yeah, 1975. On just a whim too. You didn't need no passport or nothing.
Goodness.
Me and my buddy, we were here drinking in Inuvik, and we said, "Let's go to Mexico." Wednesday night, Thursday, we were gone the next day.
Can you imagine how
with
simple?
$500.
$500 for the whole 2 months.
To buy a car and to travel, $500.
You've like experienced the dream because you can't. No amount of money can buy that now.
No.
Like, that's insane.
You know that.
I really wish you guys had pictures. Yeah. I had no idea anything about this. Yeah. So that must have been fun then.
It was. It was, yeah.
And then you came back home.
Came back home and went back to work and whatnot. Another trip I took was to Las Vegas with my buddy Sam and his girlfriend, the same Sam. And I used to tell everybody, when we were going to Vegas, we drove there. We stayed in first-class hotels going down. Goodness. And slept in the truck coming back.
Those slot machines slipped in the truck.
I'm sure we weren't the only ones in the world to do it like that.
I bet you if you didn't have to fly, it would probably be like that for everybody. Yeah, if you didn't have the option of flying. That's so funny. I had no idea any of these stories. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share before we end the show?
Oh, Oh, there's so much, actually.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much I've done
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. So many people I've worked with over the years,
Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah.
One thing that I always know, like, my uncle's a strong silent type. Unless I was just your talkative niece. You always worked, always. Like, that's one thing I remember about my uncle, is you were always working, always busy, and always...
And a lot of that, I think, is from Dad.
Yeah.
Because he worked hard, you know, and we used to see him work hard. I mean, that was just the way things were, right? I mean, he had to work hard to look after his dogs, and get enough food to look after us. And I think his holiday was when he went sailing in the summer.
Yeah.
He was the captain of the boat, so he was the big boss,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
the big boss, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on the show and just sharing a few stories. Auntie really wanted to, my Auntie Donna really wanted to get you on. Would you have contacted otherwise?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, eventually.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to share a few stories.
I think it's important to share as many stories as you possibly can. Yeah. So thank you for coming on and sharing a bit about who you are and things you've gotten to do. I really wish to see pictures, those 70s and 80s and 90s. Well, thank you for coming on, and I'm just going to end the show now.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining in on this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.